Hi Potassium, welcome back to Story Time. I'm very excited about the book we have today. It's called Mr. Flux. The class is familiar with it, but I think I really enjoy this story because it deals with changes, which is something that we're all going through right now. So, if we're all ready, let's go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and take off the dust cover now. All right, Mr. Flux. There once was a boy named Martin who didn't like change. Actually, it wasn't that he didn't like change, but more that he didn't know change. He lived with his family in a square house set in the middle of an unchanging street with a fixed number of trees, dogs, cats, and cars. It was a very nice but predictable place. That is until a man named Mr. Flux arrived one afternoon out of nowhere in a noisy old van. Mr. Flux didn't just know change, he loved it. He walked around wearing a bowler hat and called himself an artist, even though he didn't make drawings or paintings or sculptures or anything remotely art-like. While others were busy making sure everything stayed the same, Mr. Flux enjoyed mixing things up. "That crazy artist," said Martin's dad. "What could he possibly be thinking?" said his mother. And so it went, with each day seeming to pass like every other day, until one morning when Martin was riding home on his old red bicycle, his new red bicycle being too new and scary to ride, and the day took a sharp and unexpected turn. There, right in the middle of his path, sat a large wooden box. He noticed "Property of Mr. Flux" printed on one side, and since Martin was a good neighbor, he knew what he had to do. He set his bike aside and carried the box to Mr. Flux's house and knocked 3 times. Almost instantly the door flew open and there stood Mr. Flux in his bowler hat and pajamas. "My name is Martin," said Martin. "I found your box." "Hello, Martin. Look, my friend just sent me a bit of sky," said Mr. Flux, holding up a blue puzzle piece. "Did you know that I have a foam collection and a tuba filled with tennis balls?" said Mr. Flux. "Don't you want it?" said Martin, holding out the box. Mr. Flux looked at the box and shook his head. "No, you should keep it." "But what's in it?" "Why, it's full of change," said Mr. Flux. "Oh," said Martin, and he thanked Mr. Flux politely. He didn't want to open it. He suspected it contained cacophony, disorder, and germs. But he didn't want to get rid of it either. So Martin headed home with the large wooden box on his handlebars. And what a commotion that caused. "Oh dear, what next?" said one man. "Heavens to Murgatroyd," said another. Martin looked around at the crowd of worried and unhappy faces gazing over the hedges and knew what he had to do. He returned to Mr. Flux's house and knocked on the door. "You can have your box back. We don't like change around here." "Oh," said Mr. Flux. "And why is that?" "Because change is upsetting, and we like things just the way they are." "I see. But Martin, everything changes. Look around you. A dewdrop, a bubble, a cloud. What stays the same?" "I'm not talking about teensy-weensy changes." "Right, well," said Mr. Flux, taking the wooden box from Martin. "Can I offer you a jelly donut instead? Or perhaps a ride in my plane? Or shall we spin toy rabbits on my record player?" By the time Martin returned home, he had tried 6 new things. The next morning, Martin put on a shirt he had never worn before. At breakfast, he skipped the crazy crackles and ate toast instead. When Martin's mother saw him, she had an idea to do the same. Martin had decided that little changes were okay, but not big changes, like riding his new bicycle. Over the next few days, he visited Mr. Flux often. Sometimes Mr. Flux would talk about his ideas. "You can make change, or it can make you. Change is to keep us on our toes. Change is to make us look more closely. And what doesn't change are the arms you used to hug with. Those stay the same." Sometimes Martin would try to teach Mr. Flux how to make art the right way. Martin showed Mr. Flux that some artists made things that actually looked like something. And Mr. Flux showed Martin that other artists made things people didn't see as art, but that could still make you feel wonderful. And even though Martin was sometimes confused and Mr. Flux was sometimes puzzled, they both liked each other enough to give new things a go. As time passed, the neighbors began to notice Mr. Flux's influence on the street. A few houses magically changed color. One family awoke to find the town mayor eating apples on a ladder in the middle of their lawn. And another discovered the local librarian tossing salad in their wading pool. Children began to wake up early, hoping to spot something new. The most surprising change was in people's thinking. Then one day, Martin woke up to a big change. Mr. Flux was moving away. Martin had grown used to Mr. Flux. What if he left and nothing ever changed again? The day Mr. Flux was to leave, his van broke down. Martin was secretly happy. But then he saw Mr. Flux's sad face and knew he had places to go. So while Mr. Flux tried to fix his van, Martin snuck off to fetch his beloved old red bicycle. It was a bit small for Mr. Flux, but after a few adjustments, he was on his way. Just before he left, he gave Martin the wooden box. This time, Martin brought it home, where he finally opened it. Pesos and yen, francs and liras, there was change from all over the world. Martin read the note taped to the box and smiled. Sometimes change is big, and sometimes it's small. And sometimes change is just change, and that's fine too. Thank you for the art lessons. That's the end of the story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really like this book. I know we read it before, but as I always say, we always find something new in stories. And for parents, the story time is a great time also to ask your children a few questions about the story you read. You can ask them very specific questions, such as, who the characters were, what the setting was, the order of events, or you can also ask them open-ended questions, like have them place themselves in the character situation, see how they feel, what they would do differently, or just have fun with it, right? This is the kind of stuff that we do in class when we read a story and we're on the carpet, and afterwards we just talk about it and enjoy ourselves. Sometimes we'll write about what we read, or other times we'll just draw. But you guys are at home, enjoy the activities you have, and we'll keep this going for you guys. Have a great day. See you guys soon.